I still remember the day my younger brother, Evan, walked into my kitchen holding a glossy folder like it was a treasure map. He'd been drifting for years, odd jobs, short temp gigs, endless ideas that never stuck. But that morning, his eyes were alive in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. Inside the folder were photos of handmade pottery, color charts, and a layout for a small studio downtown. He called it Clay Haven, a place where tourists could paint, fire, and take home their own creations. He talked fast, like every word was a spark. Startup cost, $75,000. Break even in 18 months. He had it all on spreadsheets this time. No wild guesses. No promises in the air. He said all he needed was a small loan, just until things took off. When he mentioned using my car as collateral, my stomach tightened. I'd just gotten back on my feet after my divorce. My daughter Mia was finally sleeping through the night. I had a good remote job in software, a steady income, and peace I hadn't known in years. Still, Evan was family. And family helps family, right? The bank officer explained the terms, interest, title transfer, all official and neat. Evan's hand shook slightly when he signed, mine trembled when I added my name below his. That moment should have felt like hope. Instead, it felt like handing over something I couldn't get back. For a while, everything looked fine. Evan sent photos of the shop, shelves lined with colorful bowls, clay dust on his jeans, customers smiling for selfies. He'd even painted a sign outside that read "Made with Love, from Family Roots." I smiled when I saw it. Maybe, just maybe, he'd found his purpose. But good seasons don't last forever. The texts got shorter. Payments started to arrive late, then not at all. When I called, he said there were supply issues, then slow foot traffic, and finally, "Don't worry, I've got it handled." Except he didn't. The next time I drove past Clay Haven, the lights were off. Dust covered the display, and a for lease sign leaned against the window. My brother's dream had cracked, and I could already feel the weight of what was coming next. Sometimes the people you rescue are the ones who let you drown. The silence was the first red flag. Weeks passed without a word from Evan. No updates, no receipts, not even a picture of his clay-stained hands. I told myself he was just busy, that creative people get lost in their work. But deep down, I already knew. One Friday night, I drove across town to the address on his business card. The street looked emptier than I remembered. When I reached the shop, the windows were dark. Dust filmed the glass. A "Closed for renovation" sign hung crooked on the door. Through the window, I could see empty shelves and a few cracked mugs stacked in a corner. I called him right there, heart pounding. He answered on the third ring, background noise loud, like he was sitting outside a bar. "Hey, sis," he said, his voice too casual. "Things are just slow right now. Nothing to panic about." I wanted to believe him, but his laughter didn't sound like someone struggling to rebuild a business. It sounded like someone running from the truth. That night, I checked my account. The loan payment was overdue, not by a day, but by 3 weeks. And because I'd co-signed, the alerts came to me. My chest tightened when I saw the words, "Final notice before default." I spent the next morning pacing my living room, coffee growing cold on the table. My daughter Mia was at her art desk, carving shapes into wood. She looked up at me and said, "Mom, Uncle Evan's still coming for dinner next week?" I smiled, or tried to. "He's just busy, honey. He'll visit soon." But the truth sat heavy on my tongue. That night, I sent Evan a message, short, simple, impossible to ignore. "You need to talk to me before this gets worse." He replied an hour later. "Don't worry about it. I've got something big coming. Trust me." Those 2 words, "trust me," echoed through my head until I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the air conditioner, and realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about loyalty. About how far love can bend before it finally breaks. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. The second loan payment had bounced. And with it, the first real piece of the truth. Trust is fragile. Once it cracks, every word sounds like a lie. 3 weeks passed before I saw Evan again. Mom had called about a small get-together, a late birthday dinner for him. I almost said no. But Mia had been working on something special for months, a small wooden box she carved herself. She spent every weekend sanding, painting, and polishing, saving her allowance to buy brass hinges. She wanted her uncle to have a place for something important. I couldn't deny her that. When we arrived at my parents' house, the driveway was packed. Music spilled from the backyard, laughter cutting through the evening air. I felt my stomach twist before I even got out of the car. Evan was there, all smiles and noise, surrounded by people who had never once seen the inside of that pottery shop. His shirt was new, his shoes spotless. Mia clutched the box in both hands and ran toward him, her eyes bright. "Happy birthday, Uncle Evan," she said, holding it up like it was treasure. He looked down at her, smirked, and took it without a word. He flipped the lid open, then burst out laughing. "Empty?" he said loudly. "What's this supposed to be, a joke?" The laughter around him grew. Someone filmed it. Before I could move, he tossed the box to the ground. It cracked apart on the patio, one hinge snapping clean off. The sound made Mia flinch. Her lip trembled. She stared at the broken wood like she was trying to understand what she'd done wrong. Something inside me broke right then, not like the box, quick and loud, but quietly, like a door closing forever. I knelt, picked up the splintered pieces, and felt my throat burn. Evan had already turned back to his friends, beer raised, pretending nothing had happened. I took a photo of him, of the car parked crooked in the driveway, of the man who'd traded respect for pride. Then I opened my banking app. One by one, I canceled every autopay connected to him and my parents. Rent, utilities, everything. In the family group chat, I sent just 2 words. "You're done." Phones buzzed around the yard. Heads turned. Evan looked up, confusion shifting into anger. But I didn't wait for him to speak. I took Mia's hand, and we walked away from the noise, from the lights, from the version of family that had stopped being one long ago. In the car, she held the broken box on her lap, silent tears rolling down her cheek. That was the night I stopped being the helper, and started being the line he could no longer cross. Sometimes love isn't about holding on, it's about learning when to let go. The house was quiet that night, but my thoughts weren't. I sat on the couch staring at my phone screen, the loan app open, the past due balance flashing red like a wound that wouldn't heal. Evan had turned my kindness into a leash around my own neck. And I was done choking on it. The next morning, I called the loan officer, explained the missed payments, and asked what options I had. Her voice was calm, professional, detached in a way that felt merciful. "The car's still listed as collateral under both names," she said. "If payment isn't made by tomorrow, repossession can be initiated." Tomorrow. One word, 24 hours, and maybe, a way to finally breathe. I brewed coffee, watched the steam rise, and saw Mia sitting at her desk gluing the pieces of her wooden box back together. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. I could see it in her face, the same quiet acceptance I'd felt that night. Sometimes, even children know when something's truly broken. At 9:30 the next morning, a tow truck rolled into Evans Street. The driver called me when he arrived, polite, matter of fact. "Confirming pickup," he said. 10 minutes, maybe less. Through my phone, I heard the sound of chains, a car alarm blaring once before going silent. It was over that quickly. Evan called me 20 minutes later. First angry, then pleading, his voice cracking with disbelief. "You can't do this. You just ruined me." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." He screamed something I couldn't make out before hanging up. I set my phone face down and felt an odd calm settle in, the kind that only comes after too much noise. That night, I got an email from the loan office, account settled. Vehicle auctioned. remaining balance closed. The words glowed on my screen like the final page of a story I never wanted to read. Mia peeked from her room holding the repaired box. The glue lines were uneven, the hinge crooked, but it was whole again. "Can we throw it away?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "No. We keep it. So we remember what we won't accept again." The next morning, Evan left 6 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Because for the first time in years, the silence in my house wasn't loneliness, it was peace. Sometimes closure isn't an apology, it's the sound of nothing left to say. A year passed. Seasons changed, but I didn't hear from Evan again, not a call, not a message, not even a whisper through family. Life grew quieter, steadier. Mia and I moved to a small house just outside the city, the kind with lemon trees in the yard and sunlight that poured through every window. She built a new workbench in the garage, carving small keepsake boxes for her friends. Each one more beautiful than the last. The old broken one sat on a shelf, not forgotten, just finished. Then one morning, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just my name written in shaky blue ink. The handwriting made my stomach twist. Inside were 3 pages, torn from a legal pad, the words uneven and smudged. "Sis, I messed up. The shop's gone, the money's gone, and I don't even know how to fix what I did. Mom and Dad had to move out. I'm sleeping in my car most nights. I know I hurt you, and I hurt Mia too. I wish I could take it back. Please, just one more chance." I read it twice. Then a third time. There was a time I would have answered, would have opened my heart again just because we shared blood. But family isn't about DNA. It's about respect. About responsibility. Mia came into the kitchen as I folded the letter. She was 16 now, taller, quieter, stronger. "Who's it from?" she asked. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel guilt, just clarity. "From someone who taught me what boundaries mean," I said. I slid the letter back into the envelope and dropped it into the trash. Then I took a blank postcard from the drawer, wrote one sentence in neat, steady handwriting. "We're not family anymore." No signature. No return address. Just truth. I mailed it that afternoon and never heard from him again. Life kept moving, not with fireworks, but with peace. Mia graduated high school, smiling wider than I'd seen in years. She still builds things from wood, boxes, shelves, even a small table for our new home. Sometimes, when the evening light hits just right, I see her sanding a piece of cedar, calm and focused. And I realize that the strength I found didn't just save me, it shaped her. Because the hardest thing I ever did wasn't cutting ties. It was learning that love without limits isn't love at all, it's surrender. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it means locking it, and keeping the key for yourself. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone you once had to let go of, take a deep breath, and know you're not alone. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to choose peace over family? Share your story, your voice might help someone else find the strength to walk away, too. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps this community grow and keeps these stories alive. Because sometimes, healing begins, one story at a time.